What's up? Let's see. Click on this and see who's all here. Oh, it just tells me 13. Hey, everybody. It's Craig and Jim. We're chilling, hanging out. Um, Sign into the chat down here if you can. So put like, hello. Craig. There's 15 people on. We got like 65 people, you guys. So we're going to have to give it a few minutes. Hey, what's up, Mike? There we go. Linda. There we go. Oh, I got our link. Okay. Yo, what's up? We're just giving people a give and take. What's up, Susan's here. Awesome. Um, Seeing what's going on, letting everybody kind of filter in. I think the last time we checked, there was like 65 people that signed up for this webinar, you guys. So this is going to be pretty cool. I'm pretty excited. This is the absolute very first time I've ever shown anybody the 100% step-by-step go-through process of how we do everything here. So, like I said, I hope this works out for everybody. So, okay, I guess, well, there's only 16 going on. We got like 60 people. I know some people are watching it recorded. So for the sake of the recording, so we don't have a big front end lag of stuff, you guys, we'll go ahead and get started. In the messages up here in the top, if you guys type questions, if you guys want to, have a shout and say like, hey, re-explain that or do something along those lines, if you type it in to the chat box here, Jim is watching this behind the scenes and he will interrupt and ask questions, because as soon as I go full screen, I can no longer see what the chat box looks like. So Jim will give you guys a holler or interrupt and say, ask your questions, that kind of stuff. So, okay. I got my notes here, and I'm just going to go ahead and read them out, if that's cool for everybody. I'm just going to be straight up and say, first off, that this retouching, watching retouching, it's pretty boring. Just stick with me, take some notes, write it down. That's the reason we're doing a live webinar, and then because it's also recorded, if there's something you missed, you can go back and check it out piece by piece, okay? This again, the style of this retouching, it's not a one-click problem-solving fix. There's no way you're going to take a raw image, import it into ACR Lightroom or Capture One, give one click, and be done with it, okay? So there's a million steps in here, and it will, for starters, my second deal says that this process is slow. I got a ton of phone calls from emails and phone calls from every outlet that I had. It was like, Craig, seriously, how long does it take you to do this? And the process for me per image was usually taking about 15 to 20 minutes per file. Sometimes I would spend 30 to 40 minutes if it was a portfolio piece. I've been doing this 1, 2, 3 step process for quite some time now, and I no longer spend that amount of time. Literally, it takes me 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes to knock out an image. So how long will we have to access the recording? That's a Jim question, Mara. Jim will shoot you an answer for that. I think we're going to, from my understanding, record it to a file, put it in a concealed access code like YouTube channel, and then you'll get the code. I guess it'll stay up there for a while. So forever, how long Craig wants it available. There you go. See? Okay. So the process is really slow, but I encourage you guys to just completely stick with the process and make it go from step to step. You will speed up. Now, with that being said, towards the end of the webinar, I want to show you some quick hacks. I don't want them to be your go-to. I want you to do it the right way the first time, but at the same time, I had 19 cheerleaders in the studio, and I'm not going to spend 20 minutes per cheerleader getting those all retouched. Okay. So I can show you some very fast hacks that, will keep you, if you get a bulk of images, until you get it back under control. Okay. So I will show you some hacks. Okay. I also wanted to give you my thoughts on why, to me, retouching has been so important. And I follow a lot of you guys. A bunch of you are my friends, and I really, really appreciate you guys supporting all of this. But I follow a bunch of photographers. I see photographers stuff all the time. I'm one of the judges in Senior Style Guide for the Hot 100. And if you're part of Senior Style Guide and you're going to do partake in Hot 100, this is going to be a massive what I'm looking for. And that is your social media platforms and the work that you put out. That's your living portfolio. So when I graduated art school, we had to have a printed portfolio. No longer do people say, "Hey, I want to see your portfolio." You don't really go interview and people come in and see your portfolio. Okay. Most importantly, you're sending images out over social media. If you're doing senior photography, commercial photography, it doesn't matter. The images you're posting is the clients in which you want to get. That is your portfolio. And if your images are the same as everybody else's, then everybody thinks that's normal. But then you put up something that I've done and people go, "Whoa, that's really amazing." I've gotten, over the last 2 years, the biggest, most broadest comment that I get is that my work looks very clean and it's very natural and very true. And my skin tones, everybody, photographers alike and models and art directors, have all just flocked to that. And that's the reason why I say that retouching and taking your time on what would be something that you're going to put out on Instagram. So for instance, if you had a senior image and you sent that to the client, then that's great. But then maybe, a week later, when you have, 20, 30 minutes to give, you might want to reopen that file, start from scratch, and do it the slow process so that it's perfect, just because you're going to upload that to Instagram. Okay. I mean, your social media is your portfolio, and you better have top-notch retouching, because if not, you're in line with everybody else. So part of this is to separate yourself and give you that one little bit of an edge over, say, somebody in the same market as you. Okay. All right. Enough soapbox for that. The file preparation, I think solid file preparation is the best key, the best thing you can do. Whether you file prep Lightroom, ACR, or Capture One, which is my absolute favorite, okay? But solid file preparation is going to make your Photoshop, a third of the work. It really is, okay? And we're going to get big into that here in a second. And then the last thing that I'm going to go over, it won't be the last thing on the webinar, but the last topic on my notes before we get going is Photoshop is this amazing, huge program. We all know it. And with all the little drop downs and menus and that kind of stuff, it's going to be very difficult to navigate that. And so I'm going to show you how to make Photoshop work for you, and so you're not really fighting things a lot. Okay. So let's get started. Okay. All right, Jim, just to let you know, I'm going to flip this down and go into full screen. So this is realistically, my desktop is my big beautiful Ferrari. So no, I don't actually own that Ferrari. Okay, so what I'm going to do is let's bring up Lightroom. And these are, this is my particular image. This is Ella, which I just love to death. We go out and shoot all the time. And then this is, oops, sorry guys. Okay. So this is my image, my image, my image, my image. And then these back here are other photographers. They're friends of mine that had sent me images so that I could help you out with this particular webinar. Okay. This one is from a Sony. This is from a Sony, Canon, and the rest of these are Nikon. So the rest of these are Nikon for me. Okay. All right. So what I want to kind of, show here is on this particular image, the yellow background, I haven't done anything to it, but I want to jump over to hello, which is where we started. Okay. And I'm going to soft proof this so it'll be side by side. And so what you're looking at is this is the original raw file unedited, and this is what we had to do to get there. Okay. So if I blow this up, you can see that we've taken out the massive highlights and all this yellow, and just really neutralize these skin tones down to, the best we can possibly get for Lightroom. Okay. And then just for, general purpose sakes, here's the exact same file opened up in Capture One. So if I put this over here and that over here, now you can see that this is Capture One's abilities to render skin tone, and this is still Lightroom. So this is the best I can get in Lightroom, and Capture One produces such a more depth and brilliant image. And we'll get into Capture One in just a second. Okay, and to let you know, okay, we're working the exact same files through Lightroom and Capture One. All right. Okay, so for Capture One, I'm going to shut down Capture One right now, and we'll get into that in a second. And we'll go full screen in Lightroom. All right. Okay, so this is my gray card in the studio, and there we go. It's just a Spider Checker gray card, and I have all of my models, seniors alike, all shoot it. This over here is 18% gray. This is pure white. This is supposed to be pure black, but it never worked that way. And it's just a double over side by side. Okay. I love to shoot this because up here in the histograms, then it tells you where all this goes. And this massively huge, large spike right here, this is all this gray. And every one of these spikes, right in here, all these little spikes are supposed to be these colors that show up. Okay. It's pretty easy. We'll just put the lens profile in and go up to the top. It's pretty easy to grab the white balance, and it's called white balance, not gray balance. So we need to actually use the white balance. And then once we set it, it brings this all out for us. Okay. And so it gives us something that's pretty close. Most importantly, it changes the tint down here. And then after that, it's a little cool for me personally, and I like to just warm this up just a tad bit like that. Not a ton, but just a little bit. Okay. All right. It lets us know what's going on, and if for whatever reason we wanted to do this, we could work this particular gray card and then take this setting and sync it to another file. So that's why I like to use this right here, because it's just numbers. You don't get so, what do you call it? You don't get so into like what the actual image is. It's just colors. Okay. All right. Let's pick an easy one. We'll use Michael's. This image was recorded from a Sony camera, and go up here to the history. And let's go into import. Okay, so here's the actual original file. All right, so here's the basic Lightroom steps on how I would get this file prepped and ready to go Photoshop. All right, I would zoom in, and I really hope this particular version of this webinar will show like the colors and stuff, but this skin it's pretty yellow for me. And so what I would do is sometimes you can cheat and white balance the hot spots of the eyes right here. So that gets us in pretty close, and then kind of bring this down a little bit, about like that. Okay. I usually don't really concern myself with the numbers. I always just try to move the slider until the image comes out. I don't like to mess with exposure, contrast. In the highlights, I will actually pull the highlights down a little bit, and I will open up the blacks just a little bit. Not a ton, but that's where I kind of go. I leave this alone for now. We'll come back to it. With the tone curve, I will take right here where these two lines intersect, I will take this particular point right here and bring it up until I can see the dotted lines. So just a little bit, I just want to see that dotted line underneath. And then these shadow lines, I'll bring those shadow lines down just a little bit. And that just kind of darkens things up, kind of gives us that little bit of contrast that I like a lot, okay? We're going to enable the lens profile, and it already made it for a Sony. So we can shut down that box. And then the next big huge box down here is going to be this HSL box. And if you watch, the difference between Lightroom and Capture, we'll use the exact same HSL box to manipulate color through Capture One also, okay? So what I like to do is in the hue, we'll move it towards the orange just a little bit. So I'm taking the red and I'm moving it about 10 orange. And then on the orange, I'm going to actually make it more orange, about the same much. And then on yellow, this is the one that you need to go light to figure out which one's going to work for your particular human, okay? I've done Michael's before, so I know that pushing it towards the yellow is going to work the best for us right now. In the magenta, which is going to be like the blush and the little pieces like that, we want to push that actually towards the red just a little bit. And then in the purples, we want to make that go more purple just a little bit. So little bitty small tweaks is going to work out for us, okay? And let's bring this back up so we can see side by side just so far, just these little bits of numbers, you know, make a big difference between the two, okay? All right, under saturation, we're going to take the red saturation and pull them down. So we're going to take what we call the top three and pull these down just a little bit across the board. And then under luminance, we want to darken it because skin tone's actually darker than, you know, what we shoot it at, okay? So in the red, I'm just going to darken that, darken down the orange, and darken down the yellow. And so now we're starting to pick up a pretty good, you can see where the makeup artist left different powders. They used, you know, concealer down in here, and then they used powder across her face, and they didn't use the rest of the powder down in here. So you're starting to pick those up. And those are things that we need to get in the retouching. You can see, this is makeup artist. This is contouring from a makeup artist up here, okay? If you get to this point and you start to see this barreling gradation from your makeup artist, it might have time to show her what this looks like so she can stop doing this so much. All right. And then, but after we get done with the HSL in this particular dialog box, then I come down here to the version 5, the current dialog box. I want to bring up an area in oops, sorry, you guys. I want to bring up an area that's a bit more in the shadow. And right on this jawline right here, she's starting to pick up this little bit of blue. And so we want to kind of pull that out just a touch, not a ton. Don't get carried away with it. Kind of leave green alone and maybe give it just a little bit in the primary, the red primary. So a little minor adjustments start to make this fall in. If this is looking pretty good, we can go to our hue. And if there's any one color that just really, other than the top up here where they contoured her face, the rest of this on my particular monitors is really starting to look pretty good. However, if there was a color, let's just say we want to fix this yellow up here, then we can grab this little circle, make sure we're under hue, and then once you click, you hold your mouse down, and then you can either go up or down and it will change all three in increments for you. Okay, so I'm going to screw it up on purpose so I can Control Z and get back to where we were. Okay, I do think it's right, but this option is available right here. Okay. Okay. And then now we want to kind of mess with this blue back here. And I thought that if we made the blue a bit more on the cyan and cool that off, then this color right here would start becoming, it would give us the illusion that she's more tan than this background. Nobody cares about the background. They're always interested in the skin tone. So even if this back a bit more green and we take all the green out and make it more blue, then this background will again make her face seem to be a bit more tan. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, what's up? We doing okay?
Yeah, Craig, you had a couple questions if you want to take them.
Yep, take them, shoot them.
Do you use your gray card for outdoor shots?
Yes, I use my gray card for everything, literally. I had it at push. I take it on location. It's basically as important to me as my film cards. I take it everywhere.
And the second question, is it best to have makeup artists apply eye and blush and not foundation?
Kim usually airbrushes all of the like concealer and stuff, and then we do a test shot in the studio. And before she does like powdering, like the tea, the magic tea, and then like under her eyes, then what we do is we start it off, and then we get the model under the lighting we're using. So if we're using a hard beauty dish or something like that, we can actually see just where the powder needs to go. And so we found that minimal is best. So if you take your test shot, see where you're a little bright, then your makeup artist can go in there and add the powder to those particular areas, and it wouldn't be like all over the whole face. It makes your job like a whole much easier to do that. That's kind of what we do now. We all right. Good to go?
Yep.
Okay, everybody following along? Everybody's good? Okay. Okay, so we've done all of this color corrections, and we really haven't to touch the exposure and the contrast. So that to me leaves this pretty native, as density wise as we need to. If we make it brighter or darker, we start bringing in artifacts like grain and other things that we just really don't want. So I try real hard to make all of my adjustments without any exposure or contrast. Okay. And I would take this particular image and export it into Photoshop and get ready to retouch it. So this one is about where I would go. And so hopefully everybody can see just really small tweaks using this HSL down here gives you very large results. Okay. All right. The next one that I want to show is an image from Brian's work, and super good friend of mine. And this is the original raw image. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's very bright. But the big thing to this image is all this yellow green is, he shot this with Canon, so this is a Canon, but this yellow green is contaminating her teeth, the whites of the eyes, the under parts of her chin, and then there's also contamination going on in the hair, especially right here on the jawline, okay? And then in the corrected image over here, we've pulled all that out. The biggest differences you're going to see are the teeth are clean, the eyes are white, but look how blue the eyes got. So that's her natural blue. We didn't really do anything to mess that blue up, okay? And then in the hair, her hair has gone back to brown instead of having these yellow-green cross colors into it. Now, the downfall with this particular one is that I darkened up the background to make her kind of pop out a bit more, but her skin is a bit washed. It's a bit washed, and I mean, obviously, it's a bit overexposed in this area in here. This would be more of a photography issue, but we can bring this in and start pulling this down just a bit more and add to it. So again, good file prep makes our job a whole heck of a lot easier. Okay, so I'm going to take this image right here and get rid of it and go from the start back to here again. So, okay, so we imported this image. So here's the exact raw image. So these are side by side. Again, she's got a really nice, big, huge smile. And the first place I would start, again, is white balance. And keep in mind, white balance means white. So what I did at first is I tried to pick a good hot spot on her teeth, and I white balanced it. And then I was like, okay, let's see what we can do with this. And I brought it in, and I got to thinking, okay. So let's pick the white of her eye again. And that just seems to me to work, pretty much the best that I'm going to get. So I picked this up. I white balanced the hot spot of her eye right in there. And I still pick up this G green right here. Now, the part about this, before I go messing and warming it up, is we need to take care of this little bit of green right here. And that's real simple right here with this tint. So all I'm going to do is add magenta to it, and I pull out just that little bit of green right there, okay? So now I can take the whole image and warm the whole image back up again. And so now she starts to come alive with a little bit of skin tone, all right? Again, I'm going to leave exposure alone. I am going to take my highlights, and I'm going to bring my highlights down a little bit, and I am going to open my shadows just a little bit. I'm going to leave my blacks and stuff alone, because right here where it says white and black, this right here is what I'm doing down here, okay? I just find that this has been my style for years, and I just don't really mess with that right there, okay? So again, I'm going to right here to this cross section, and I'm moving it up until I can see the dotted line, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to pull it down, and you can see I just made my blacks a little darker. It's a little bit more rich in color. And now I'm going to come over to the HSL sliders, okay? First things I would do, start on hue. I'd probably go 10, 10, and 10 right here on the bottom. So somewhere right in here, make it go a bit more orange, go 10 this way, and go 10 that way. All right, so I went 10, 10, and 10, and she's a little pink, and that pink is coming from the red. So I'm just going to take that particular slider to the orange just a bit more, and I'm seeing a little bit of green right here. So we're going to take this green and make it just a tad yellow, and that gets rid of that 100%. And you can see that her teeth are starting to whiten up. We're starting to pull that color back in, and the whites here are looking pretty good. All right, so I'm going to blow this down. There we go. You guys, I have to actually say, as on a side note, you'd be really proud of me. I just actually installed Lightroom for the very first time on my new Mac. I haven't actually had it on here for a very long time. So thank you guys for pushing me to put this webinar on, because anyway, okay. So now what we're going to do is come into the next one under saturation, and we're going to pull this down again, probably about 10, 10, 10, 10 right here under saturation. We're going to start to pick up some green, and then under the luminance, and this is the brightness, again, we're just going to start pulling those down about 10, 10, and 10. And once you get this set up, you can save this as a preset so that it's your pretty much your automatic import. All right, so here's what I did that's different is I took this green and I dropped it down quite a bit, and we're also going to drop this blues quite a bit in here, okay? And then under saturation, I'm pulling all the saturation out of this green, out of the yellow just a little bit, and that should allow me to darken that up a bit more. And what I'm trying to do is get the natural green of these trees. I'm pulling all that yellow out, and I'm getting the natural green of these trees, and hopefully with it being more neutral, she starts to give the illusion that she's more tan, okay? Now, oddly enough, we can go back now and saturate the whole image as a whole now, and add just a bit of that pop back to it. We don't want to go overboard with it, but now we can add just a little bit of that to it. This red right here is our highlight warnings. We don't want anything blown out. So let's just go and take a look at these highlights and push that down just a bit and see what happens. There we go. And these are pretty much our mids. So let's just go ahead and pull our mids down just a little bit. There you go. And so now you're starting to see that just by, fine tuning all this color, I got a little bit of red and pink in there too. So dadgummit. So that's not going to work. Hit Command Z. So we're going to have to go back into luminance or hue. This is going to be a good one right here. So we can take this hue slider and put it on this little bit of red and pink and add just a little bit of yellow manually to it. I'd say about like that. The rest of this I would probably kill out in Photoshop. It's going to be a bit more exact. We do have this ability down here to go. So right here in our shadows, this is definitely a shadow area. So we can add just a touch of green to that and see where that falls. I probably wouldn't go overboard with it. Pull out a little of that red saturation. Make our red go just a bit orange. Don't get too carried away with it. And the blues, nope. No, okay. So that's about all I'm going to get. And so definitely there's a big, huge difference between the two. Again, this is a bit more what I would consider prepped and ready to go. This green is definitely what trees look like, not like, saturated yellow. And then the skin is looking pretty good. There's a little bit of red and pink in here, but again, this is really close, and in Photoshop we can pull this out. Okay, so we'll work this image. And then here's the one of mine that I wanted to use. It's not anything special. It's really the only one that I had that was very much, just a big chunk of skin to show you guys on stuff. The other image that I really love is this one. I thought this one was amazing. Let's just do this one. So this one hasn't been worked over yet at all, and it's even under import history, so there's nothing to it. So again, just for sake of repetitiveness, let's just do it real fast. Now these whites down here are going to be brighter than these whites, so these whites down here are going to give us a better accurate white balance. So I'm going to white balance on her shirt, see where that comes into play. Okay, tint looks good. Probably cool her skin just a tad. Okay. Again, just super fast. See that line. Drop that line. Under hue. 10, 10, 10. Any questions so far?
Yeah, we got one.
Okay, shoot.
I'm missing how when you're doing these HSL adjustments, you're doing them locally, like just to her chin. My screen is a little blurry. What are you choosing that the adjustments don't affect the whole image?
That's kind of the beauty of HSL. It will, when you pull up one on your own computer monitor, you'll be able to just slide that and just see that it works. It's a scary little tool to start with, but once you kind of get in here and just get your hands dirty, you'll see that it makes little stuff. So all I'm really doing is on the bottom of her chin in this green right here, this big green tree back here is actually what's called color contaminants, and that color contaminants is reflecting like a white reflector or like a silver reflector would do. It's reflecting into the shadow areas the green color from these trees. That's just natural. That's just color contaminating. So all I need to do is just kind of go in here and just make small adjustments to pull that out. So but these sliders over here, if you just go real slow with them, they do the trick. It's amazing what they do, I hope that answers your question. Make a follow-up question. Did that answer it? So again, as you can see, it's pretty much the same top three HSL sliders doing the same work from everything. Okay. And then again, just pulling stuff out and getting it more more apt to, file preparation. Basically, is what it's all it boils down to, is file preparation. So I think I had some kind of, on my original, I had some kind of weird crop like this, like that. Okay, so this one's a bit yellow, and you'll see there's a huge difference in here. The thing about Lightroom that I want to show, and it's something that I've learned from talking with Capture One, is if you notice down here under calibration, all you get is versions of Lightroom. Go ahead. What's your question? No? Okay. So all you get down here are versions of Lightroom. And what Capture has explained to me, okay, so this is coming from the brains of the people who built Capture Pro, okay, is Capture Pro actually spent money and bought the ICC profiles from the camera manufacturers, where Adobe didn't really spend the money. So that's why you do not see camera ICC profiles in the calibrations. All you get are one camera that you would constantly make the same adjustments to. Okay, so when you take a file into Lightroom, the Lightroom is actually processing your raw file. It's kind of like secondhand knowledge. So Adobe says, hey, we think your file should look like this. That's how that works. Okay, instead of saying, hey, Nikon says your file should look like this, or hey, Canon says your file should look like this. This is Adobe saying, hey, Adobe feels your Nikon should look like this. Okay. Anyway, you can get really close, using the HSL sliders. And I think once you should do several different images and see if you kind of, like, I've been falling like, plus 10, negative 10 across the board, a little orange, a little down, and, maybe a little bit green on the shadows. And, this is my Nikon, and I'm not putting a green in, but in the other two, I had to add a little green. So if you keep coming up with the same numbers, make a preset and make your life a bunch easier, okay? Okay, so this is an image that I would send up and get ready to go into Photoshop, okay? So this portion of the webinar is going to conclude in Lightroom. So this is all I wanted to show people in Lightroom, is that you can actually get really close just by messing with these HSL sliders. So if anybody doesn't have any questions on Lightroom, I'm going to get rid of Lightroom and move the same files into Capture Pro. Any questions?
No questions.
No questions.
But,
all right.
but give them a few seconds, because there is a little lag between.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. On the webinar, there's a 7-second delay in questions.
But I don't see anything, so I think you can roll.
All right, we're going to roll. All right, so we're going to quit the Lightroom and go into Capture Pro. All right, Capture Pro. Am I sharing the full screen? We're good to go?
You are good.
Okay. All right. Okay, so Capture One Pro is definitely my baby. And I use this frequently and all the time. And I want to bring up the same files that we were working on, okay? So I think what we're going to do is we're going to work the green file. I want to show you this one. And I want to show you this one. And we should show you Michael's for sake of webinar, okay? So I'm going to get rid of the others. So I just have these 4 images up, all right? All right. So if we bring Michael's file back into here, it's pretty close to exactly what it looked like. In your Dropbox, there is a step-by-step Capture One file preparation video that I made everybody. So if I fly through Capture One, you can go back and watch the video that's in the Dropbox, and it will really detailed show you how I file prep in Capture One, okay? Go back to Michael's. So one of the things that I love about Capture One is right here where it says base characteristics is you can base characteristic the Sony. So here's what the Sony looked like, and this is changing the ICC profile. So that's what the Sony looks like and changing the ICC profile. All right. And I always try to tell people, you know, why would you not want to use the color index or the color profile that, you know, $100,000 camera is, you know, and that's what these phase one cameras are. And so you know, in essence, if you pick the Sony and it's under auto, you know, you get this kind of big contrasty, you know, image, and it's like you're stuck all over again. Okay. And so what I like to do is change the ICC profile. So I'll go to phase one. And I really love this 45 and then this outdoor portrait. And then you can change the difference. So leaving it pretty much on auto works for me. Okay. So this is huge. I love this. Like I said, I am flying through this just because, you know, I already included a video for you guys on this. Abraham, when he wanted to take this course, and so he was all, you know, hey, Craig, I really love your color toning. And I kept trying to tell him, hey, it's all in Capture One. And so right here where it says color balance, you can, you know, change and make the colors go any way you want. And that's just you being creative. And this is about how I do it. So if I was to, you know, let's reset this box. There we go. So I reset this box. For me, my standard operation is right here in this kind of this purple. I bring the little line to the dot and I darken that down just a bit. And I bring this into about the yellows and I let the dot almost touch the line, bring that down, and then I take the highlights and I bring down my highlights. This is my standard everyday color. Now sometimes, and on this particular image, I actually did go a little bit more blue in the color toning, but that's it. This is everything I've done. So you can see that I actually used the Nikon profile. I did the white balance. I pulled the contrast out. So it, you know, got pretty snappy, but I'm going to add the snapback to it. So I usually flatten it out just a bit, a little on the highlights, a little on the shadows. And then here's my film curve, same in Lightroom. So I took that box and went up with it a bit. And I took that box and I came down with it a bit. Now the biggest difference is in Capture, I get to use the levels. Okay. And so if I was to reset the levels, this is how the image would look. And I personally love for these eyes up here. I love for this makeup right here to go a bit black. So I bring this in until I get a bit of black in there. And bring this down just a bit. And I love for this white to get a bit punchier, so I kind of pull that in just a little bit. And then in the midtones, I just darken that up just a bit. It wasn't much, as you can see. It didn't take much, but that's about what I like to do. Okay. And so this image is prepped and ready to go. We need to flip the ICC profile on this one. This one raw. Sorry, you guys. This one's yellow. Okay, so in the Dropbox, I sent you guys the color editor stuff, and when you hit these three little lines, then it'll show you like my presets, which are Skin 1 and Skin 2. And so these are all that HSL. Go to HSL. All this hoopla right here and setting all these orange, yellows, and reds. I kind of did that for you, and they're included in the Dropbox. And there's a video on how to install these little Skin HSL sliders. Okay. So I went ahead, for, like I said, for the very first time, and I gave you these right here. So this is amazing, and this is ready to go. This one should be ready to go. Yep, this is ready to go. Again, this image on On her, all I did to file prep this literally was just go skin 2, and it just snapped right into play. And then here is the same deep green image. It's exactly the same way. You can see the HSLs. I just changed the top 3, red, orange, and yellow, and got this to work. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take these 4 images and let's go ahead and export them real fast so that we can move into the second part. While this exports, does anybody have questions?
One question.
Go for it.
Can you batch edit in Capture One?
Yes. It's the exact same way you would batch edit in Lightroom. So if this green senior image right here and you had 20 of this, you could work the first one, and then in Capture One up here in the top right corner you would use the up arrow and copy, and it would copy every single adjustment you do, and then shift and click like you do in Lightroom the last green image, and then click the down button, and it would paste every one of the preset or every one of the adjustments to all the images at one time. So yes, you can totally do it, and I do it all the time. As a matter of fact, I like to do the gray card. Let's see if it's in here. Here it is. Okay, so here's my gray card, and this is my studio, and it should work out here for Ella, so let's just try it. Okay, but right here on my gray card, if I reset everything back, so this is exactly raw, nothing happened to it, and I walk through super fast, and I put my Sigma art lens in. I usually pop the sharpening. Like I said, all this is in that video, so we wouldn't take up a ton of space. Okay, phase 1, 45, portrait outdoor. So right here, I would grab the eyedropper. And in Capture One, because these were made for medium format cameras, and medium format cameras are gray balance, not white balance, we're going to measure on the gray card. Okay, so that's working. And then I usually don't use the skin adjustments on the gray card, but then you would copy that particular setting, say go to Ella and paste that particular setting, and voila, she's up and ready to go. Okay. And then you can just dial in skin 1 on Ella looks the best. Now in Lightroom, I wanted to show you guys that her white dress was completely blown out. In the dynamic range that you get in Capture Pro, her white dress has detail all the way through it. Just a little tidbit of, okay. All right, so let's quit and move into the next portion. Are we doing good on questions?
Yes, we're all caught up.
Okay. Does anybody want to see one of the images first? Anyone in particular? We've got the green image, the bookcase, the background, or the other background, the green blue one. Does anybody have a preference?
Let's give them a few seconds to answer.
Yep.
But I'm not seeing. Oh, we got a preference. Green, blue one.
Green, blue one. All right. Green, blue one it is. All right, here it is. Okay, so on my notes, I was trying to tell you that make Photoshop work for you. And so I want to take a quick second and kind of run through some stuff in Photoshop that might actually make life easier, okay? All right, so I have in here, I loaded my actions. These are the same actions that I sent you in the Dropbox, and you have to load all 3. So you've got to load the FS2, the retouching, and then the 2019. The other 2 you can just leave in the bottom. You won't ever use them. You won't ever need them for any reason whatsoever. It's just that these have been built over and over and over again, and they use pieces of these. So I'm not a computer programmer, so you get that, okay? So for instance, like the first thing is when I go to filter, if you notice under my filters, I only have blur, noise, sharpen, and other. and then they're color coded. I don't have a list of menus. All those other filters like the art stuff and the defractalize and all those other filters, just I never use them, and to me it's a waste of time, and I get tired of fishing for what I'm after. So I went through and I color coded what I use pretty much the most. Okay. Also, little things like apply image. I use this a ton, and it's just easier to that apply image is under the image command, so I can just go image, apply image. Edit, transform, we all use that a lot. The filter one is the most though. We use this particular menu, I think, the most, and so it's just easier to get rid of it. And so even under blur, I got rid of box blur, radial blur, all those other blurs, and these are the three that I have kept. Okay. And so also you'll notice on mine, if I hit F and I cycle through my screen, my main pasteboard is bright white and then gray and black. As you notice, I got rid of all the colors, and I don't like to work on black because it makes my color pop out too contrasty. And I don't like to work on gray because it makes everything look too flat. I like to work on white because if I zoom in on white and I hit tab, and I can use the natural white and get a color correction reference so that I know kind of what I'm doing. Okay. Also, my Instagram is completely white, and prints that we print on, the paper base is a bit white. So working on white for me is just basically my way of doing things, and it's helped me out tremendously. And a professional retoucher told me how to do this, and I think it goes a long way. So if you're willing to try, here's some things that how to do that. So under the Photoshop deal, you go to Preferences. You can just go right here to General, to Interface, and you can pick the medium gray, which you mostly have. But right here where it says Standard Screen, you go to Select Custom Color, and then make sure you just go ahead and type in 255. So 255, 255, 255 will give you pure bright white. And then if you want to go full screen, say, whatever, you can go or you can change this and we can go 255 also, hit OK. So now if I hit, and I hit tab, so it stays white all the time. To me, that's perfectly fine. So I don't mind, anyway, so I like to work on white. And then if you go under Edit and you go right here where it says Menus, then under your, let's just say the easiest one right here with Filter, you can drop down Filter, and then you just check the eyeball right here, and it'll get rid of all the ones that you don't want. And then if you click right here where it says None, you just So I color coded, but you can see like the 3D, the artistic. You don't have to uncheck all the eyeballs. You can just uncheck the root level, and then you will automatically not see what's under there. And so right here under blur, I made my blur menu. So if you go filter, blur, it's already red. Okay. So my actual main menu was red. And then I got rid of average, blur, blur more, box blur. I mean, those are just things I don't use at all. And my Gaussian blur, I left that on, made it red, and then left lens and motion alone, but then got rid of all these others. So instead of having all of these dropping down under blur, I only get 3 options. So it's just amazingly fast if you just go filter, blur, Gaussian blur. It's made out of red, and I just follow the path. So I just kind of sped my Photoshop up with getting rid of all the stuff that is, to me, useless. Okay. All right. To get into this, you guys all have this action right here called Google Tag. And if you jump on Google and you want to start posting your images and rule Google so that all your pictures come up automatically, this is how you do it. So if I'm going to run this action real quick, I know this is Michael's image, but I just tagged it for myself. And then I'm going to go image. Oh, it's under file info. I'll bring this up for you real fast. So what you have to do is, for the first time, if you use my particular actions and you want to use this Google tag, it'll bring up this dialog box, and you can use the same script, just change it. Use my keywords basically and replace them with your own keywords. Okay. So you want to change as many of these as you can, so that Google will pick it up. And so what it does is, like right here in the description, it'll say photography in Amarillo, the zip code. Don't forget your GPS coordinates. Google is huge into GPS right now. And then also, if you're going to include your web, you need to include the entire HTTP string. The whole www doesn't work anymore, so HTTP and the break is what Google is looking for, as you can see down here in the URL. So this is a complete URL where www is not, okay? And then once you're done typing all this out, go down here and export it as a file, and then re-record this action, except for when it comes up to the screen, you just import your own personal information, and voila. So every time you get your image, you don't even have to worry about it. You just go Google tag, blam. You put it on your blog, you put it on Pinterest, you put it anywhere, and now your file is actually embedded with all this coding. Let's go file info. All this info down here at the bottom, and you can see here are the GPS coordinates all written into the file, and Google freaking loves this. So if you want to rule the earth, Google tag your images. Okay. All right. So we're going to get into retouching this. So let's get cranking. Down right here is this 000 skin color set. You can just run this particular action. It'll kind of whack your image. Sometimes it'll make it look nice. This is a very, very subtle 3-layer way of doing this. Okay. The curve, I usually don't mess with it. I made it, double click it. I made this curve. It's just a little bit of extra going on here. I usually never mess with it. However, the black and white will reset like this. If you have a sky or anything blue, you might have to actually reset these back to 0. Okay. So anything blue, like if it's an outdoor or sky, water, that kind of stuff, you might have to reset these back to 0. If it's a studio shot, you can just leave them alone, okay? But again, blue, reset back to 0. Also, it's defaulted to 25%, and that's kind of, it could be a little heavy, so you could just kind of feather this back, 20, 12, just kind of see what you think. 17 right here works out pretty good. Leave that alone. And then the selective color, I've already pulled extra reds. I've pulled extra yellows. The big, huge thing is going to be down here in the blacks. This is going to be huge, okay? So down here in the blacks, it's defaulted what I normally would use. Sometimes I like to just kind of tweak these. And so if I push this over, I get a little bit more of this blue. This would be really good for like boudoir, that kind of stuff. I don't think so for seniors. It looks a little washed out. But, people ask me all the time about my color toning. And again, this is just, I take what I did in Capture One. So if I added a little bit of that blue red to it, then I would have added like a little bit of blue there and a little bit of red there. And that's how I get that rich color that everybody's after. Okay. So the black starts off really small, and then I just kind of come in here. The first thing I always do is I change my black and white, and then I double click my selective color. I go to the black, and I kind of either amplify, tweak just a little bit here and there. I really like how this is working right here. Okay. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Two questions. One, are you running geotag each time before you edit it?
Yep, that's number 1 right here on the list. See this number 1? I go click, hit play, and it geotags that image.
Okay, the second is, any chance you can lower the resolution of your monitor? I'm too old to read the tiny, teeny text. I have a smallish monitor.
No. Because if I do that, then I'm going to be like stuck here for a week trying to unfigure it out. However, are you trying to read the layers and stuff? What are we trying to do? Because I think you can go to panel options and I can make these bigger like that. Will that help?
Wait for her answer, but it doesn't look like it changes the size significantly to me.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, that's what I'm going to do. Sorry. It's selective color. So, all right. Pretty cool. Okay, so once I do this, then I can select the skin color top up here and then just kind of feather it just a touch. Nothing overzealous. I mean, I kind of leave it the way it is. I leave skin color right there. This is perfect. The toning's pretty much done. This is where I'm at, okay? So I'm going to take these two things. Before I run the next one, you have to flatten the image. You have to. You can't run this frequency separation pattern with all this run. So we have to flatten it first. Okay. Let me drop the file resolution. So I'm just going to go to image size. You don't have to do this, you guys. I'm just taking a 350 meg file and making it smaller just to push faster. There we go. Okay. Okay, so I just made it faster. Okay. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to run number 2 in the list, which is the frequency separation. So we're going to run number 2. It's a really long action and it'll take some time, and it will always come up with the last one that you used. In this case, 25 is way too much. So let's dial in 12. Let's dial in 8. I will tell you guys on full size resolution images. So if this was a true 350 meg file, which is what we would have brought in, I would stay anywhere between 15, 20, and 25. So we're just going to figure this out real fast on a smaller resolution. All right, so let's try 4. Okay, so what I'm looking for is I don't want this like forehead color to smash my eyebrows, my eyelashes, and the defining shapes like lips and that kind of stuff. So what I mean is that so if I crank this back up to 20, you'll see like her lips, they're completely gone. We don't want that. We want to keep as much detail and lose as much detail as humanly possible, okay? So let's just put a 2 in, and you can see that we have too much detail and we don't have enough blurring going on, okay? So if I put 4 back in, let's go 5. All right, we're going to go 5. 5 is a good, like her eyebrows are still eyebrows. I get this little bone highlight, her nose and lips. All of that is still defined, okay? So I'm going to say 5 is good for this particular image. This is what I'm looking for, is enough blurring. However, I'm keeping all of my important stuff like lips, eyelashes, eyebrows. They're all still identifiable, okay? Now this will run 2 times, so I'm going to hit OK. And it's going to run it once, and now the dialog box pops up and it wants to run it again. You want to run it with exactly the same number. And this number right here is going to be our factor. We're going to add 5 to this particular number, okay? So for instance, if this filter, if we were running 15, then we add 5 to that and that becomes 20, and that's our magic number. We'll get into that 1 second, but this is how you find the magic number, okay? So right now our working number is 5. We're going to hit 2 times, let it run. You guys, it should come up black and white. And if you get a weird file or something along those lines, sometimes these check layers get all mixed in with the frequency separation layers, and you kind of have to go through and pull them out, okay? So you should have frequency layers over here and then a set of 3 check layers over here, okay? So this is how it should look. If it does something weird on your end, just push them back up so that you have 2 different folders. So you should end up with 2 folders, check layers and the frequency separation, okay? And yes, black and white is how we want it. So just leave that alone. And so we have this. Okay. So what we have is, for starters, just to explain what we have here, okay? The RT is our retouching layer. This is if we need to get in here and actually clone stamp and fix some stuff. This is a blank layer. That's all it's there for. You turn it on, nothing happens. Turn it off, it's just a blank layer. The next one right here is a solar curve, and yes, you get this whacked curve, and this is going to help us identify problems and such. We will get into it in a second. Okay. This top one, you can't read this palette. I don't know if I can pull this palette out, make it bigger. There we go. Hopefully that works. Okay. This top one here is the frequency separation with, how do you do that? All the detail. There we go. So this is just the frequency separation with all the detail. And then this bottom one is the frequency separation with just our color. Okay. All right. So this high worker one is the one we're going to work on, and this low worker down here are the two that we're going to work on. So our two most important layers are these two right here, this one and this one. Okay. So we're going to turn our check layers on, and we're going to work on this right here. Okay. All right. So we're going to bring this in. Okay. What I would do is I would use my spotting tool. And the reason I use my spotting tool as opposed to my healing brush is a healing brush will leave a track mark. So if I use my healing brush, make my brush hard so it does its thing, and I clone that out, you can see right there it left a blurred out of focus line. Okay. Now, if I undo that and I make my brush go soft, because everybody loves to work on these soft brushes, and I do it, it does the exact same thing. There is an out of focus line, okay? So we don't want the granular texture of her skin to be out of focus everywhere we had to heal. So we have to use our spotting brush, okay? All right. All right, so all I've done is I've made a lighten, darken, and a normal stamp, so I just work fast, okay? All right, so for right now, I'm going to go to lighten on my healing brush. I'm just going to pick that up and drag it straight across like that and get rid of this stuff, okay? So the reason I use lighten is because everywhere I go that runs into a darker place, like any time that the sampling part takes from a darker place, it doesn't actually leave a line. It won't sample from something that's darker. So it's only going to sample from wherever and make the dark equal that. So here's a light line, and if I sample that, see, it won't take away the line. You have to go to darken to take away that line. Okay. So most of our problems are all under the lighten stamp. So we just kind of come through and knock these out. This is where you're going to spend some time. It's not going to be the most time you spend. However, it will be, for starters, it will definitely suck up all your energy going right here. Okay. The other place that's going to suck up all your energy is the burning and dodging, and that does take some time. But once you start to see like these little dark amoebas and that kind of stuff, and the use of these check layers, it will actually help you in your stuff. Now, everybody, some girls, they're just gifted with this little like female mustache going on here, and this lighten is you can take from above and go over that little female mustache, and that's a perfect way to just get rid of that right there. If you get a little bit of hair on the edges because you lit with texture, you can do the same thing. You can just cover that hair right up, okay? All right, down here on the bottom, I just used my normal, so I'm using the normal 100% current layer on that working layer right there, and I'm just going to go through and knock out anything that just doesn't look really great. The good news is it's not affecting anything color. Okay, so this particular formula for frequency separation has absolutely nothing to do with color. It's only gray. We're only we're only messing with gray, okay? So I told you the retouching part's boring, but just stick with it here for a second. I will zip through this if I can. Okay. I think we're close enough for government work. Depending on how much you zoom in and how much you need to take away is how much time you spend on yours. If this was a huge, massive portfolio piece, I would probably blow this up pretty good and get in here and give it some time. Like I said, this is where you're going to spend most of your time. Okay. All right. Now, oddly enough, that out of focus line that the healing brush gives actually benefits you when it comes to hair. And I always find that to be really weird, okay? So I use spotting on all the facial textures, but I will go back into and use the content aware, make sure the samples is off. And again, use a hard brush. Bring this up to 100%. If not, bring it down to, roughly in there. Now, the biggest huge trick with hair is you've got to make your brush about the size, and you want to work one direction only. Don't heal like that, okay? You're going to get a crap ton of out of focus lines, okay? However, if you just kind of zip in here and you pick out all the hair that sticks out and bothers you, okay, then it actually works pretty good. So we're going to clean this up right here. Okay, another trick that I use in Photoshop, I am using a Wacom tablet, and one of the things about Photoshop that I actually like is when I was drawing with a pen and pencil, you could rotate your paper, and that's the R key. And so if you use the R key, you can spin your image, and that just helps making the Wacom tablet a bit easier to work with. Anyway, so I use the R key and I spin my images quite a bit, actually. And then when it comes to hair, since it's going to take a while, I get rid of my tabs. So I can see what I'm doing. I don't like the hairs that run across the grain. I think they stick out too much. So those are the ones that I kind of target and get rid of. Obviously the ones right here, you can get rid of those. I would just say whatever highlight or hair that bothers you, get rid of it. We doing good on questions?
Yeah, I'm back. All right. Do you use a Wacom or digital pen?
The Wacom tablet.
Yep.
I don't have the fancy monitor yet. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Yeah. That's a deal since the kids and the wife are in the other room. I figured I would just say that. That's a great Christmas present for Dad, by the way. Yeah. All right. Oops, that was a mistake. Okay, so I think I did a pretty good job. If you hit escape, it will return your image. I don't know if you've ever hit the R key before and then been like, oh man, I don't know how my image got all whacked and get it back. Okay. All right, these scruffly things over here, again, we're only working gray. We're not actually working anything else. So if you, again, use the lighten key, you can just legitimately knock these out. And I am using the spotting tool, by the way. Sorry about that. If I put the layers back on so you can see what we're doing. Anyway, let's go normal and pop off these little things sticking out. I think everybody walks around the universe with stray hairs, so it's not something, you know, all these little flyaways, that's just part of human nature. So I would definitely leave flyaways. I wouldn't make a clean cut. I would just go through and knock off, you know, some of the ends, like the way out here in the back that just kind of bother you. Take out some of those closed loops, simple stuff like that. And obviously get rid of the dust. I'll show you another way to clean up this background. Okay, so now that that's done, this seamless paper, again, like I said, another way to clean up background is I just use my lasso tool, and I'm going to make a selection around her that's a little bit loose. This might be a bit tight. So I'm just going to add to it about like that, making it a bit loose. I do have my lasso tool to have selected 20 on the feather. Inverse my little dotted ants again on the texture. All this texture, we don't necessarily want it. So we're going to go blur, gloss and blur. And then I told you that we put in a number 5 and we had to add 5 to it to get our magic number. So 10 is what we're going to be. We're just going to leave that at 10. Okay. And then whatever we did here, we've got to do to the color layer. So I leave it as selected. I just choose the color layer, hit Command F for last filter used. And that will again gloss and blur by 10. And it looks pretty good. We still got some little bit of paper textures back there. So we'll hit it one more time. And that kind of softens that up just a bit. Okay, so if we turn off the black and white, it looks like that. And we have a little bit up in here. And so in this particular case, probably just lasso that again and go blur. Give it just a bit more just to get rid of that. And then there's a little bit right in here. So not every image falls into case, but there we go. Ta-da, now we have a clean background, okay? All right, so going back to our magic number, we're gonna work on just the color. So we're gonna get rid of this texture and we're gonna work on just the color. And this will speed up your process, okay? So you hit L for lasso, and we're gonna go around and select all these little areas, but we don't want to select, like, you don't want to come through here unless you're batch imaging. Like if you're doing 19 cheerleaders and you've got, well, you know, a couple hours to knock out all 19 images, you could totally select the whole head like that. It's not really going to do any worse. It's just not going to give you, so we're going to go gloss and blur. Magic number was 10, so we're going back to 10. You could do like that, and it would smooth all that out for you. However, because of the lasso being so big, remember it feathers out on the edges, okay? So if you're going to take your time and kind of do it, I would just select this area, hit F, select that area, hit F. F meaning it is redoing the last filter I used. I just don't have to dial it in every time. So I used 10 there, 10 there, go up underneath these eyes, 10 there. I want to keep this makeup, and so we're going to blur just that. And then I want to keep this right here. Yeah, I know. See right here on, there's a highlight. Yeah, I know. Right here on the highlight, there's a chin highlight. And so what you can do is select just the chin highlight and feather that, and it feathers out that line. And then you can kind of go around that highlight like that, and it will feather it back in. And so it gets rid of that makeup line for the highlight right there. Hit 10 on that. 10 on that, and we're pretty much good to go. So if we turn that off, you can see we just softened up. I forgot our nose, you guys. You forgot to say, hey, you forgot the nose. Got the nose. Okay, 10 on that. There we go. So then we've got rid of those makeup lines that were up there, and I don't need anything I don't need to add any actual retouching. I do see right here, here's a piece that we're missing. So I'm going to select that, hit the healing stamp, knock that out. And here's a piece of twig right there we don't want. All right, so this gave us some color issues. So again, this is where it would be more feasible to go in and use the spotting tool because it has a sharper edge. And so I spotted that, and then I'm going to get on the color. No, I don't need to do that. Sometimes you have to get on the color and fix it too. So, all right. All right, looking pretty good. Here is a piece that we missed right there. So again, we can just double check. Okay, so this is, again, if you got a pen and pencil and you're writing this down, taking notes, or you can come back and watch the video. This is a really good way to start double checking your work before we, completely say we're done with this, okay? Because this looks pretty good. I know it was kind of a rush job for the webinar. You would go through here and, get in here and clean all this up. But let's double check this image. So what we want to do is we want to take this working layer and we want to unclip it from this layer. So our image goes black and white, and now we're going to turn on our solar curve, okay? And so you can see, okay, we had maybe some healing issues up in here. You can see they're starting to pop out. And if we clip that all back in again, we're going to actually really see it. So I'm going to go to normal up here on the spotting brush, and my texture runs, let me get this layer right here. I'm going to use a brush just so I can show you guys what this looks like. I'll use green brush. Okay, turn it on. Okay, so our texture, oops, dadgummit. Make a small brush. It was gray, I couldn't see it. Okay, our texture is actually running this direction right here. So we need to make sure that texture runs this way. Can't find my little thing. Okay, and then here's another spot in here. Let me do this. Here's a spot here and a spot here that we need to fix. And here's a spot here that needs to be fixed. Those need to be fixed. Okay, but however, because this is a human face and everything's not square, this texture actually runs this way, like in swooping motions, and this texture runs this direction, this texture runs this direction, and this texture runs north and south right here until you get to this side, and then it actually runs this way. Okay, so it's important that we stay in that texture marks. That way, when we clone, see here's a spot right here, and so this texture runs like this. Okay, so it's important that we clone in the same direction so this grain, this digital skin texture will line up. If not, you're going to get straight texture from here lining up over here, and it's going to look like crap. Okay, so I'm going to go to the spotting brush again. Current layer just on normal, back to my working layer right here, and I'm just going to start picking up this texture and putting it in the same direction. So I'm just going to cover up the white that apparently we made. Okay. Okay, and then this texture, like I said, runs this way, so we're just going to run it this way, run that way, run that way, run that. Okay, all right. So by using the solarization curve, we were able to just see more detail. And if you had to get in here and retouch these earrings, this solarization curve just really helps you get in here like this and retouch this and see the edges of those earrings without actually, messing them up. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes you get in there and you get in real close to those, and it's really just a pain in your rear to retouch some of that. So this is just a check layer. That's all it is. So we uncheck this and clip this back down, and now we can see what we did. So then up here is where we had those weird spots, and it could have been these lines. We just zipped through some of those lines, and so now we just added that skin texture back in. So here's the whole face, and you can see just even taking out some of those hairs that is just really nice. So all right, so once I'm done at this phase, I take these two layers and just go ahead and trash them and zip that down. I don't necessarily need to work on those. Okay. The next ones is you can make your dodge and burn layers. I don't know why I don't have a curve for this, but I don't, and I apologize. I can make one and put it in the Dropbox for everybody. Anyway, so what we need to do is we need to add two curves. So we're just going to go curve, curve, take these two curves and group them together. Call this dodge burn. And then on this curve, we'll call this burn. And on this curve, we'll call this dodge. And on this curve, we'll take this center point and we'll bring it down just a bit. And on the burn, we'll take the center point and bring it up just a bit. Actually, you know what? I think I got those backwards. Yeah, dodge is light, or up is lighten. So call that dodge, call this burn. Okay. Dad burn, haha, dodge D-O, nah, D-O-D-G-E, there we go. Okay, all right. If we turn on our check layers, then we have the skin blemish layer right here. And this allows us to just kind of look at what we need to dodge and burn. So let's go with the dodge, and we're going to get a brush. Actually, for this brush, our hardness is just going to be somewhere in the middle and probably about 3%. I like to work on the image really small because this gives us an idea of our biggest threat, so that we can see under the chin and kind of over here on this left side of her chin. So we're just going to get a small brush. Oh, yeah, that's right. Dodge this out. Okay. All right. Then when you get done dodging and burning, we can go, I mean, there's tons of tutorials on this. I'm just trying to kind of speed things back up again. But once you get done with your dodge and burn, it's easy to hit the black spikes, the black parts of your dodge and burn. And it's hard to burn and, make your image darker. And so if you hit the invert, now basically you burn in the white specks. You just kind of come back in and invert, burn in the white specks. So a good hack to this is to run this particular that I have, and it gives you a bit more dodge and burn. It's a little bit weird, but, and see how the layer's screwed up? You just have to drag it back in again, okay? And then we're gonna run this on top. All right, so this does the dodge and burn for you, and it auto masks the image, which I think is really cool, all right? And so all we're going to do now is just paint the skin. This is like the speed up hack to dodge and burn. So again, get like a hard brush and just kind of go through and legitimately paint the skin in. And so now we will achieve a dodge and burned image just by cheating a little bit. So again, like I said, it's kind of a hack, you know. I hope you don't mind faster ways of doing things, but there you go. So that's kind of how I do it, actually. I mean, you can spend all right. You can go to the check layers, turn those off, turn those on, you know, double check, see if everything's good. But that's about how I do it. Okay, and then the next massively huge thing that I love to do is right here under the contour. I play that particular action. Again, make sure it's not part of your check layers. Ta-da. Okay, and then I take the skin blemish curve and I actually just make it darker. So I'm going to make it pretty dark like that. And this gives me what I would consider like a paint by numbers way as a way to follow the paint by numbers. Okay, so I want to use my paintbrush again. Somewhere about right there in the medium is pretty good. I like to start with black. That's just me. So I hit D to reset my colors, and I'm going to use a really tiny brush, and I'm going to hit her cheekbones, and then I'm going to use a bigger brush and just kind of bring that in just a little bit. Now you will leave track marks, but that's kind of the point.
Hey, Craig,
Yeah.
you need to share your screen again.
Oh, I do?
Yeah, I think we had a momentary blip where you dropped off and then came back
Okay.
without a screen.
Turn it off, turn it on. Share my entire screen. There you go. Am I up and running?
You are.
Okay. Did I lose people or are we good?
No, I think we lost you for a second, and I thought it was me.
Oh, gotcha.
And I got confused for a little bit, then came back and noticed that your screen wasn't up. So we're good now. I think everything's good.
Okay. All right. Just making sure I don't want to have to cover, you know, if I have to get over some stuff. So all I'm doing is everything dark is dark, and I'm just kind of painting by numbers. Also, don't forget the clothes, you know. I mean, go ahead and paint in, you know, the textures and the shape. I just like to brush that a bit like that. Just kind of darken that in a little bit. We will get rid of all of our track marks, so not 100% on leaving track marks. What's up?
Craig, can you
Yeah.
start over by the paint by number concept? I think that's where you cut out.
Start over by paint by numbers. Okay. We're going to take this whole layer and trash it and start over. Okay. So this is what, starting over, this is what this looks like. So we have our dodge and burn. That's where we finished. Okay. And we left my check layers on. I just left it in black and white. And I go to number 4 in the presets, the action sets, and it says contour. And so I just run that. It brings up the contour. We're going to drag it below the check layers. So I get a Plano everyday gray layer. Okay. And then, excuse me, in the check layers, I go where it says skin blemish, and I take this curve and I just pull it down so it's even darker. So it's just a little bit more ugly. And then on the gray layer, I just get a brush, get kind of a, you know, 20, 30%, somewhere in there. About 4% on dead black. And I like to get with a small brush, and then I just follow what is already black. Okay. So I made a stripe down this cheek and a stripe down that cheek, and I'm going to make a one in the eyebrows. We'll come to eyebrow or eyelashes later. I love to make the chin a bit sharper and stand out more, so I'm just going to trace under it. And now I'm just going to get a bigger brush. I'm just going to follow my paths one more time. The corners of her eyes, we'll figure that out. Right here, this is a little bit, you can see it's a dark place, so we're just going to make it a bit darker. And then up here, she's got this white, it like, you can see where that makeup or whatever just didn't. So I'm just going to darken that until it comes in. Also, I also make sure that I pay attention to the hair part. I also darken up that. I hate a white hair part, that's personally. And then you can see how right in this part of the eyebrow, it pops just a little bit right there. And then I just get a bigger brush and pop that, and then a bigger brush and finish that contour that the makeup artist was trying to do. So really, I'm just painting what is already there. So the little nose piece under the nose. Okay. And then, like I was saying earlier, don't forget about the clothes. You know, you can't have a beautifully sculpted face and not and not have sculpted clothes. So we're going to bring these in and sculpt that. Precision and all that kind of stuff is kind of out the window, so nobody really cares. So after I get the black done, obviously I'm going to flip over to white, and I'm going to use a smaller brush, and I'm going to almost do the same thing with white. I'm going to bring out the cheekbones again with a small brush and a line, and then a bigger brush. And then for me, there's like a hard edge all going on right here, so I just kind of get a bigger brush, and I start in the center. That's where I want to build up that light contour, and just kind of brush it off the edges. I would get a small brush and hit the nose. The nose doesn't touch, it's rounded, okay? So we don't want to draw a line all the way down. Maybe get rid of under the eye just a bit. Make sure we get that. I don't worry about the eyes. I would get the lips and the highlight, and there is a little lip highlight that should go on right there. And then a chin brush right there. Okay. Now for the clothes, I usually just get a big sloppy brush and hit the highest ridge on every one of these. Something about like that. Okay. All right. Now if I go to my check layers and turn it off, she's all contoured out. So you can see what we did. Obviously this is way too much, so we're going to go with our magic number, which is 10. I'm going to go filter, blur, Gaussian blur, 10. I'm going to blur it down 10 and go, maybe just a bit more. So let's hit one more time. Now it kind of feathers out. Obviously 100% is just way too much. So we're going to take the opacity, drop it to 0. And this is what it looks like with no contour. There's no contour because it's at 0%, and this is what it looks like. And what I want to do is I want to move the opacity up until I start to see a slight difference from between the normal and what I did, and then I know I have it where I kind of want it, okay? So I'm just going to raise this up, usually somewhere in the 30s. Sometimes you have to turn it off, turn it on. So this really, really subtle difference between turning it on and turning it off is about what I'm after. So in this case, 39-40% is absolutely perfect. I don't want to go much more than that. And so it just gives us a natural snap on the clothes and natural snap on the face. Okay. All right. Now, you could say this is contour for face, or just look at the icon and it will tell you, but you can run this again and make a whole new contour. Now, in this case, you don't necessarily need to work black and white unless you absolutely want to, but I find working upside down works the best, just because it's easier to make brush strokes all in the same direction. I'll show you what I mean here. I'm going to jack my opacity to about 20%. I'm going to get really tiny brush, and I am going to make it really hard, okay? I'm going to start here, and I'm just going to flick my wrist as I paint extra little hairs in, okay? So I'm just going to paint over the highlight areas and try to stay in the same flow. Remember, smaller brushes work the best because there's single hairs that make up a bunch of hairs. Okay. And by rotating my screen, like I said, it's just easier just to make flick marks than it is to actually try to trace it out by hand. So I'm really just making these nasty flick marks, just trying to stay in the same pattern. All right. Now I would go back with the black and actually raise it up just a bit more, make my brush just a tad bit smaller, and trace in the darker parts. Again, you don't have to be so precise with it, which is, the good part. And this is not something I would do if I had 19 cheerleaders for sure. But I would do this if there was a senior, ordering a bigger print or like a wall print or something like that. Because these little details, when they're printed really big, make a huge difference. Okay, and then I'm going to go back and hit the blur for 10. I just did it one time because my brush was so small. And if you turn that on and off, you can see it just adds a little shine. That's all it is to it. It's kind of a lot of work for just a little shine. That's why I said I wouldn't do that for, 19 cheerleaders, but I would do that for somebody ordering a big print or, led by 14 or something. All right. So pretty much this is what I have, and I would take my check layers and at this point go ahead and throw those away because we don't need it, and flatten all of that. I'm just going to save it. Okay, and then the big mass part of texture is coming up. Oh, I forgot. I want to run through and show you what I would do. I did this to the one on the advertising. Okay, is I usually will always run it through some kind of a liquify. So I take my background layer, I dupe it, I go to liquify. I just use the hotkeys. It's Command Shift X for the hotkeys. I go up to the little top part, the little pointer thing, and anything that's kind of flat or a little bump that sticks out and I don't like it, I either push it and pull it. So I'm not really redefining her body and shape a ton, just kind of adding a little fluff to it, okay? So I thought that this part of her hair was a bit flat compared to this side of her hair, and this comes in, so I want to make that just a bigger curl like that. This piece of clothing right here sticks out and I didn't like it, so I want to make it down and make it go away. And then this is a curl in the background. I just didn't like it, so I'm just going to get rid of it. Make some of these curls over here a little bit bigger. She's a pageant girl, so it's kind of like Texas hair. You can't go wrong with having more curls. But this part on her sweater, I just wasn't real thrilled about. So I just kind of come in and fine tune some of these bumps and such. Made that flatten out like that. Up here, you have to kind of use your menus up here, but there's this drop-down menu right here called Face Awareness. And if it picks up a face, then you can mess with just these particular portions. I do like to take this jawline and bring it in a bit, bring the width in a bit, and then raise the chin just a bit also. I also, old school magazine trick, but I also like to make the eyes bigger. And so about 15, 20, somewhere in there, just wherever. Doesn't take much. So if I hit the preview, you can see the before and the after on that. I think I'm going to take this piece right here and just kind of push it down just a tad bit. There we go. There we go. So that's about what I would do as far as liquefy. And I'm going to go with that. I like it. So I'm going to flatten that, resave it. And then number 5 on my actions is the sharpen. And this is where it'll give you some of that digital grain texture and stuff that's always in. Mine defaults at 9 and 5. And for about 80% of the work, these two numbers work absolutely perfect. So if it looks too digital, you can turn these numbers down, and if you're not getting enough sharpening, you can turn these numbers up. But for me, I think 9 and 5 work pretty good, so I just leave it there, and that's where you're seeing the difference between that and sharpened. So hopefully the preview or the webinar will make that happen. But anyway, that's what I do. So we've just finished this particular image in slow-mo. Save this and be done with it. So has anybody got any questions on the workflow on how that happens? I was going to pull this one up just because it's another image and she has a little bit worse skin. I thought I already, let me see, I got to open. I did save it. No, this one I didn't do. So has anybody got any questions while we kind of go through this? I can.
No questions yet.
No questions yet. All right. So this one, if you can watch, it's just a repetitiveness. You'll just see that I'm doing the same. I'm just doing the same thing. I just adjusted the skin color. I'm going to run the separation. This is a large file, so probably 20 on her. Are we doing good on time? Like I said, this runs at 2 times. What's up? Go ahead.
I was going to say, everybody's being quiet right now.
Uh-oh. All right, so like I said, I'm just going to run this separation 2 times at the same numbers. I ran it at 20. We're going to add 5 to it, so 25 will be what I would consider our magic number. It comes up defaulted as my check layers, so I'm just going to bring it in and go to S for spotting, get my tools, go to normal, and just kind of come in here and spot this out. Okay, with all these dark pits, if you just go in here with lighten, then I would take the flow for lighten and drop it down just a little bit, but you can keep that real nice texture and get rid of those little blackheads. So right here on her nose, this is one of the reasons I was trying to bring this particular image in. It might not be a great image as far as, a photograph, but it's a great image for going over retouching. The trick with this is to bring the lighten down just a bit so that when you run over this, we don't get rid of her freckles, but we definitely want to get rid of these little blackhead pores and that kind of stuff that she has. So as you can see, it's keeping the same texture. It's doing a pretty good job of it. Now we just have to come back on the normal and hit the pieces that stuck out the most. So it's a little bit of a double process, but you get used to doing it. It's pretty quick.
Tracy has said that she would love to see you edit in your real time.
I am editing in real time. I was just trying to make this repetitive. Here we go, Tracy, just for you. Now I'm just kind of working this out real fast. Like I said, once you get used to doing it, without having to stop and explain everything. The big secret, I guess, is where it comes from is the magic number and blurring the final skin over. Also, having a really good makeup artist helps too. So, like all these little white hairs right here, you could go to darken, turn the opacity down just a little bit, and then you could kind of trace over it and it'll get rid of those if that's something you want to get rid of. I don't, it's not my style. I think if you've got little peach fuzz, you got to keep it, but I mean, if that's something you don't want. So right now I'm just flipping between lighten and darken, and I'm just going to go through and knock out some of these right in here. And making your own brush presets, I think, is a huge help. And if we get some feedback where people are saying, "Hey, I want these darken and lighten brush presets," I can zip those and put them in the Dropbox too. Um, you got everything else, I don't mind. All right. So almost about ready to say that's about where I want to be for right now. Okay, so now I want to view this in color so that we can go here and go lasso, start on that, and we want to blur it. Awesome, blur 25 is our new number. So we're just blurring that. We're going to stay off of that, blur that. You got to be careful with these earring shadows right here, because if we get too much blurred earring shadow, it wouldn't be all that great. Cool. All right, so something along those lines would work out pretty good. Like I said, you could go through and double check this if we wanted to. See a piece there and a piece there, but that's okay for right now. All right. And then let's run the dodge and burn script. So again, we're just going to get a regular everyday brush, kind of up our opacity, make it hard. Oops, size, hardness, size, there we go. All right, so the dodge is missing. Here it is. I'm like, oh, the dodge is missing. There we go. That was weird. I told you sometimes these scripts just don't work as well. I was like, sorry about that. But at least it happened on the real-time webinar. Okay, so there we go. All right, so we want to burn that in just a bit more. About like that, I think. Okay. And then, like I said, we can bring in our checks and bring in our contour. And I'll show you just real fast, like I said, it's kind of a hack. We'll put this on top and grab our brush. Again, about 4%. We'll come in here and hack these. Jawline. On the lips. A lot of the work is done right in here. I'm just turning down the softness. Okay. And then if I turn down my opacity, say to about 3 or so, and use the white one, the white brush, I just kind of come in and anything that's just like super dark, because the contour layer is, pretty much just a hacked burn and dodge layer. So if it's super dark, I can just come in and paint just those little areas like that and give them a little extra attention that you might need.
Ready for some questions?
All right, go for it.
All right, we got a bunch.
Okay.
How about the micro hairs around the unibrow area? Is it similar to the upper lip hair?
Yeah. I didn't flatten my stuff. I can go back through real fast and knock those out just to show people. Oops, that was a little aggressive. What's the other ones?
Okay. On your tool presets, are those in the actions or do we need to create them?
I didn't make them because I thought people needed to create them just to so that they have what they work with. But like I said, if that's something that people want, I don't mind taking mine. I can zip them when we're done with this webinar and just throw them in.
Yeah, people would love the tool presets.
Okay.
Do you ever use healing brush tool?
Only on hair. Like there's some hair up here in this corner. Here, hold on a second. I'll show you. See these hairs up here in this corner? I would go to that worker tool and get my healing brush and just zip these out right here. So I only use the healing brush on tools. I don't use the healing brush on skin because it leaves that out of focus line that I just am not a huge fan of,
Okay, that's all of them.
Okay. Boy, that sucked. I know, right? I was like, okay, well, that was too much hair for healing, so at least you can see where that went. So what I'm going to do now is grab my spotting brush and I'm just going to line these hairs up and knock these out old school way. There we go. That's a bit better. You gotta do the same thing with the color, unfortunately. Yeah, that sucked. Going too fast. Would you say nose unibrow hair, right? I think the unibrow hair came from her powder, if I'm not mistaken. But if we grab the darken and then take the flow and drop the flow down quite a bit, zoom in on some of this, you can. She was just kind of a hairy model. See, she didn't really have a unibrow. It's just she's got a gazillion pieces of peach fuzz. So we can just like use the darkening tool and then just darken that up a bit more like that. See, she just literally has it. She's got it everywhere, but anyway, I hope that's helping. There you go. Okay. Okay, so we did the blur. Oh, we're working on the contour is what we're working on up here at the top. So we're going to blur the contour with the 25, and then again, just drop the opacity until you start to see it make a difference. I think we're pretty good, and so we'll hit flatten it all out and get rid of our check layers. And then any of the little track marks and stuff like that that we have, it's kind of okay, because watch, as soon as you run the 16-bit sharpen, it cleans it right up. It just kind of gives you that snap that you're back after. So this is a pretty expedient hack to going through here and just doing it little piece by little piece. And then, you know, on the same note, if you wanted to get in here and just, you know, clone and spot every little thing and take out every little hair, you can totally do that. I've spent buku time doing it. So, okay. I hope this, does this work? Is everybody okay with this? Are we good?
All right, we have two questions.
Okay.
How would you fix her uneven lipstick?
That was done in a creative manner, and I would probably, what color do we want to make it? We can go back to neutral, like get a new layer, and that's a hue. So change that to hue, and then just use a brush, sample that gray. It's on a hue, probably real low in opacity, and kind of paint that back in again. So hue, color. Sorry, not hue. We did this because we wanted it to be black and white, but we didn't want it, you don't want it to necessarily come across as like, you know, like a old school spot color of stuff, you know? Like we don't want it to look like we made it color and then we made her lips go black and white. So again, after I painted it in there, I would probably bring this opacity down just to show that it was color like that. But that's how I would fix it. Just change the layer to color so you can see that it's just color and hue just do certain things.
Okay, next question. Do you ever fill in gaps of the eyelashes or remove mascara balls if they're on the eyelashes?
Yeah, mascara bulbs, there's a, that's one that I saw right there. So mascara balls would be under the frequency separation. If you use the, what do you call that? The check layers, you'll totally see it. You can just come right in there and clone that out. You can just zip it right out. As far as making eyelashes, in reality, to fill in gaps, I've done the deal where you lasso it, you copy it, you put it in there, and then you got to mask it. Oh, it's a crap ton of work, you know? You can run this contour layer for, you know, so many things, okay? And so if you go to your brush and the deal, you can get just a normal, well, just get any brush. It won't matter. I mean, just make it a hard brush. It could be, you know, say for instance, you had a soft fuzzy brush. Oops, hold on. Say for instance, oh, come on. Say for instance, like, oh, brush. Oh, what am I on? Soft light. Oh, soft light. Let's make a black brush. So like that's a soft, just fuzzy brush right there. Okay. And do it at 100%. You could see that that's a soft fuzzy brush. But I would just take the same brush, make it pretty hard. So it gives me a hard brush like that. Except for right here on the side, you can twist it and turn it just a bit so it matches your eyelash like that, and then bring your size down. There we go. And now you're on brush on the contour level, on the contouring. Sorry, good bleep. I'm just making it smaller. And then just like calligraphy, just kind of swipe them in just a bit. Let me show you real fast now that I've kind of explained it. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to make this even smaller like that. There we go. And this is where the R key, oh man, this is where the R key comes into play, because with the brush, you don't want to, hold on, I'll get there. There we go. So I will fill these in like that and then flip this around the other direction. And then once you've got those like that, you go filter, just blur that just a little bit, maybe like a 2 or a 3, and it will you'll start adding them back in again. Like that. I've done that a million times and nobody's noticed the difference. Does that help anybody?
I think it is. Nobody's complaining. I got a thanks. Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you and thanks. You're good.
Okay. All right. All right. So let's flip out of this. I'm going to quit Photoshop. Don't save. Okay. I'm going to quit out of Photoshop and go get out of my white screen, go to just my ugly mug. Whew. And see where we're at, what people think. 2 thumbs up. Did this help out a lot? Is this good? What's the feedback? So just kind of asking what we got going on here. Also, while we're kind of waiting on some comments to come through, I'm on Facebook Messenger quite a bit. If you guys got any questions or anything along those lines, then feel free to ask. I have no problems answering any questions that I have to. A lot of you that are on this list, I appreciate you so much for coming and hanging out. But as well as I do that I'll most likely just pick up the phone one day and call you. So, I don't have any problems with that either. So, anyway, I hope, like I said, that prepping your images in Capture or Lightroom are definitely the way to go. And then once you get them into Photoshop, it's just as simple as running a couple actions and, retouching your stuff. So what we got? We doing good, Mike? What's up? I would say 3 thumbs up. It was only born with 2. Good job, Mike. Overwhelming. Sorry, Tracy. I didn't mean it to be like massively overwhelming, but again, that's one of the reasons Jim and I agreed to record this webinar, be it 2 hours long. I apologize for that, but at least you could watch it and pick up tidbits after, pick up tidbits here and there. So hopefully that's great. You're welcome, Anthony.
The replay should be emailed to you automatically shortly after the seminar stops. So if you don't get it within a little while, let me know. Or let Greg know.
Email to me or email to everybody?
Email to everybody that registered.
Awesome. Okay. Awesome. All righty. What is the learning curve for Capture One? I've been thinking about changing over Lightroom. If you're proficient, I always tell everybody this, but if you're really proficient in Lightroom and you can fly through like a ninja, it'll probably take you a week to figure out Capture One as long as you stay with it. A lot of the things are exactly the same. If you, I'm going to go back to my screen real fast. Let's just do entire screen and share my entire screen. Okay. If we go, are you guys seeing this? But if you go to Capture, C-A-P-T-U-R-E, Capture One, to their website, to the main website, and then under this tab that says support, and then right here it says webinar and tutorials. You want to go there, and then there is a freaking ton of stuff that you can watch to learn, you know, basically how to make everything happen. The absolute best one is this one right here called Perfecting Skin Tones. This particular video is the most amazing video out there. I've watched it like 100 times, and this video is just amazing. And if you want to take Lightroom and blow it out of the water, you get into it with Capture One, you start learning a little bit, you watch this particular tutorial that these guys did, and I'm telling you, pretty much 90% of everything I learned is all through here. I just tweaked it because this video was not made with the HSL, and it was not made with my own personal like skin corrections, and so I'm not giving Capture One credit on those. I actually made those myself. And I built the HSL sliders in there, so that's done through me. But I started learning how to tweak stuff watching the tutorial here. So I will give Capture One that total credit right there. Also, the ability to flip the ICC profile is the biggest, what do you call it? The biggest benefit to Capture One is getting rid of the junky Nikon or the junky Canon profile that's making everything all pink and yellow, and being able to flip that to a more of a neutral skin color. That's the reason I love Capture One so much. So it won't actually take you forever. It'll just take you about a week. I'm honest. If you stick with it, it'll take you about a week. I learn by doing. Yes, Tracy, you will learn by doing. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and end it there, you guys. It's been a long day for me. I umpired 3 more baseball games today, so that's 6 from yesterday, and 3 from today is 9 total. And obviously I'm sunburnt today because it was definitely warm, and I'm about done. So can you catalog images in Capture One? Yes. Go under the support tab, and there's videos on how to catalog and, you know, go from there. I can share my screen with you, Mara, since that's something that you're interested in. Hold on a second. Capture One basically isn't something that I would. Is this thing like really making all these weird windows? Okay, hold on.
Yes.
Is that better? Okay,
Yeah.
that's better. Okay, so for me, like, this is my real hard drive, okay? So right now I have my 2019 seniors, and so here's another senior called Blake. Here's our headshots. These are the headshots we did, and inside of here. So here is the phase 1 folder that it makes. I shoot tethered, so it makes these additional folders with me, and in here is my captured folders. So unlike Lightroom, where you would make your hard drive and then have all your jobs, Capture One does 1 catalog per job. So that's why it runs so fast, is it's not, you know, loading. Capture One doesn't load an entire hard drive worth of information. It only loads 1 job at a time. So if I go to Braley's, here's 3 photo shoots that we did. I can go to work. Here is the capture profile for her images. If I go to fitness, here's the capture profile for her images. So I have 1 catalog. See, here's the other catalog for her images. Okay, so Capture One will only put it. I mean, it really only pushes one job at a time. So there's not necessarily not like Lightroom where you're, like this whole 7 terabyte hard drive would be cataloged. That's why, people are having problems with like Lightroom crashing or the catalog's missing, and it's pushing too many things at one time, and Capture One just doesn't do it. It does it one job at a time. So, so does that help? Okay. All right. Are we good? Go from there. Wrap this up. Mike, you there? Yeah.
Yeah, we're ready to stop it. Okay.
All right, so let's wrap it up and call it a night. And thank you, everybody. And if you got extra questions, just send them over Messenger or email, and I'll get back to you when I can, okay? All right. Thank you guys so much. Have a good night. Peace out. Love you guys. Bye.